Well, good morning. And this morning, we're going to be talking about this book. I'm going to hold it up again in a second. But before I do, I am just overwhelmed by the number of literacy experts that are in the Zoom meeting. We have Chase Young, a professor of the School of Teaching and Learning at Sam Houston University, editor of the Literacy Research Instruction and founding editor of the Journal of Reading. We have David Page, professor of literacy at Northern Illinois University and a director of the Jerry Johns Literacy Clinic and past president of the Association of Literacy Researchers. And of course, Tim Rosinski, professor of literacy and education and former director and award-winning Reading Development Center at Kent State, past president of the Association of Literacy Educators and Researchers, elected member of the International Reading Hall of Fame, and in a recent Stanford study, he was identified as among the top 2% of the scientists in the world. What a gathering. Oh, gosh. Okay, so gentlemen, that's most of the talking I'm going to do, but I promise to hold that book up once more. And folks, if you don't have your copy already, there'll be a link in the blog to get it. You want a copy of this, I promise you. Just reading through it, I actually finally start my teaching next week. That's what happens to people who are kind of ancillary folks. And boy, did I get some ideas out of this book just for that. So the starting question is this: how did this book come about? What inspired you? And how has the response to this book been? So I think Tim's going to jump on that one. And then after that, it's whoever wants to talk.
All right.
So
Hi,
Tim,
Sam. Sam, good to see you again. As always, we've been around the block a couple times. You're such a great supporter of literacy in Missouri and around the country. Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading is our book. Came out in April, but we've been thinking about this for a long, long time. For me, it began, well, first of all, I'll say that David, Chase, and myself, one of our big interests is reading fluency. And for me, all this began with the science of teaching reading fluency. One of the things we learned early on, and this goes back maybe 20 years or so, when National Reading Panel came out and said, yes, science supports teaching fluency. A little bit later on, we had the measurement of fluency, which was oral reading fluency, words correct per minute, which I'm fine with. It's a great measure of the automaticity part of fluency. But what concerned me, and I think David and Chase and many other folks around the country, was how that was actually being implemented in the classrooms. We had well-meaning teachers, well-meaning principals, well-meaning school administrators who would say, you have to have your third graders reading at a certain reading rate by the end of the school year, using the norms that have been produced by Dibbles or Hasbrook and Tyndall, who have done a great job with identifying these norms. But then what we saw was that teachers were coming out, again, with the stopwatches and having kids read for 60 seconds and trying to read faster than the day before. And I think all three of us kind of looked at that and said, whoa, that's not reading fluency. That's just making kids read fast. And so we start chatting with each other saying, how is it that we can, increase fluency, the real fluency, getting kids to read fast, but in artful ways, if you will, authentic ways. And we started talking about things like repeated readings, which is science-based, but authentic repeated readings like reader's theater. If you're going to perform a script or read a poem, sing a song for an audience, you have to rehearse it. And rehearsal basically is another name for repeated reading. But you're not trying to read fast, you're trying to read with expression, which is that other part of reading fluency. So that was, for me, was the impetus for the book. And of course, what we did was we broadened it. The book is divided into chapters that have been identified by the National Reading Panel. Phonemic awareness, phonics, reading fluency, of course, vocabulary comprehension. We have one on assessment. And all of them was that intention of trying to take the scientific basis, but address it in artful ways, if you will. And I think we did a great job. I hate to be a little braggart about my own book, but I think it came out pretty darn well there. So I've talked plenty. How about Chase and David? What do you guys have to say?
Yeah, so I might say that part of the impetus for the book, we'd written an article for Reading Today, a short little article around artfully teaching reading, and then that turned into a much larger article for Reading Research Quarterly that was written for researchers about what is the role of teachers really in teaching reading. So often we think that sometimes teachers are kind of set aside, just do what we tell you, do it in this lockstep and everything will be okay. But there's this really important person at the center of that classroom called the teacher. And we know that teachers bring much to instruction, just, that's beyond just, the content or the protocol that they're using in teaching reading. So we published that article in Reading Research Quarterly. And then one day, I think, Chase, you had an encounter with an editor. So you take it.
Yeah. Someone from Routledge was in a session and said, you got an idea for a book? And I said, yes, I have exactly one idea. And I said, Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading, and we were under contract. So, and I love this book because it really is. It's what David said. It's putting the teacher back in the classroom. It's saying, hey, no teacher became one because they love to follow directions and scripts. We're creative people. We like to innovate. That's what teachers are. And we can't, and we have to, encourage that. And that's really what this book is about as well, is just to, hey, get that science, get that foundation, and then spin it and make it awesome.
I love what you guys just said there, that putting teachers at the center of the classroom. And that's exactly what we tried to do with the book. And I'm going to throw in something else too, before I forget. We go back to the year 2000 when the National Reading Panel came out. And of course, since then, we've had all these initiatives that have said, you got to bring science into the classroom. And we've been trying that. But if you take a look at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the reading report card that we get every couple of years, take a look at it. What you'll find is that things haven't changed much. We've gone through this for over 20 years now, and we still have a third of our students reading at a level considered below basic. We have a third of our students reading at a level called basic. 2/3 of our kids are basic or below. And yet we've been trying to put science. So something was missing. And I think, we came to that conclusion that thing is missing is the art, the teacher in the classroom, and giving that teacher that creative responsibility to implement the science in ways that meet the needs of the kids that they're working with.
I think reading it's really complex. It's a really hard job. I mean, I think it's more than a three-ring circus when you're trying to integrate the various processes in reading that we outline in the book. The phonemic awareness, alphabet knowledge, these kinds of things. It's a lot. And I think what we've kind of seen in response to the book, because we've had, a really great response to the book. We've had teachers say, wow, we just didn't really know a lot of the things that are in the book, which I think probably surprised us a little bit. But I think bringing together the science or the research, we've always called it research. I mean, guys, we never called it science or reading. It was the reading research, right? But bringing together all that research, there's a lot. It's very wide and it's very deep. And I think it can be, and it can be quite confusing for practitioners, for teachers to decide, gee, what do I implement? What do I do with all this? And so I think in the book, that's what we really tried to do, was to narrow it down to some helpful strategies around the various reading processes.
Okay, as kind of the teacher sitting in on all this, I do have something that I want to make sure gets out there, and that is your engaged reading model. And I'm also especially interested in how what kind of takeaways teachers can have from this book that will help them promote that engaged reading model. So take it away.
Well, it's funny, I was looking for the draft of that because when we were emailing back and forth about this engaged reading model, I had just a piece of paper on my desk and we were crossing things out. And, we looked at all the reading models that exist, and I really like a lot of them. They're very informative. I'm good with the reading rope. I'm good with the cognitive model. I love the simple view. And then we have the active view. But we didn't have the engaged view. Like, isn't that truly what we want? We want them to be engaged. We want them to have the foundation. We want them to have their language comprehension. We want them to be fluent. We want them to be able to comprehend, and we want them to engage, whether it be for fun or for learning. I'll be honest, I don't read for fun very much because I read to learn most of the time. So that's kind of where it came from, guys.
Well, I think basically, it's the idea of once you have those foundational skills down, you can decode the words, you can read fluently, you understand what the words mean. Then, basically it's the process of just engaging and reading. We want students to be not just learning how to read, but becoming lifelong readers. And, that's the goal. And how do you do that? Has science actually addressed that question? And I don't believe it actually has. So what we came up was 3 essential principles that we thought were necessary to be that artful teacher, to develop that engagement. We thought about authentic activities. We want kids to read real stuff. We want it to be, every time I come up with these, I forget about them. We want it to be creative, where children have that, and teachers have that opportunity to be creative in what they do with the text. We talk about the project method. Do something with what you read. That's how you prove that you've actually understood what it is that you read. So the creativity part of it, and then finally the notion of affect. We want kids to be able to read, not only to educate their heads, but also to touch their hearts. That aesthetic part of reading as well. And sometimes that gets left out in our quest for teaching kids to become readers who learn. We want readers who are inspired at the same time. So how do you do that? And I think that's where that notion of art needs to come to play. David, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I think, I tell when I give talks to teachers that, who decides whether or not a child is a good reader? Well, the child decides. Ultimately, they make the decision that I'm a good reader, or I'm not a good reader, and I don't like reading, and I don't want to do it. And when a child gets that attitude, then it's really hard to turn that around. So what Tim was talking about with this engaged reading thing is children have to see, as they're learning well enough to, building that word automaticity while they're struggling with all this, their reading has some value. And I think the best way to get to it is to help them with quality literature that really touches the heart. I mean, and where this is worth my trouble to learn how to do it and to do it well. And I think when children get a little bit older, then they, once they've got, they've become a proficient reader, they can fluently read text, then they go down their path and start looking for things that they're particularly interested in, whatever that might be. But I think kids have got to realize or come to the point that, wow, this is good. I like this. I want to get good at this. And that engaged, and so now you have an engaged reader.
That's funny. We recently did a study where, and kids start to associate, if they're not doing well at something. For example, I'm terrible at basketball. If someone made me play basketball every day, I'd be frustrated, reluctant, and, engage in avoidance behaviors. But, they start to associate reading as a bad thing or something that's not any fun. And so we did a study recently, and part of that it was a study on readers theater, and we surveyed a bunch of second graders on, does readers theater make you a better reader? Why? And one of the responses was, no, it doesn't, because it's fun.
Oh my!
It can't help you read better because it's too much fun. This can't be reading.
Chase, that goes to the axiom, no pain, no gain.
Yeah, exactly. So,
But it's not true. It's not true.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, part of our impetus as well is to dupe them into loving it
Right.
in whatever way that you can. And
Yeah, Chase, that reminds me in our reading clinic, here we had a young man who was he came to a reading clinic finishing second grade as pretty much a non-reader. We have a summer reading clinic, and I still remember him coming in that first day. He was in tears. The last thing he wanted was more reading instruction. He just wasn't very good at it. What we tried to do was make it like engaging. Well, make it fun. We call our reading clinic Camp Read a Lot. And what we do is the kids do a lot of not just reading to learn, but they're also reading and reciting poetry, singing songs, always with the lyrics in front of them, putting on readers' theater plays, all those kinds of things, that we broaden the notion of what counts as reading. And what happened was the kids usually in our reading clinic get to the point where they start writing their own poetry, their own song lyrics, their own readers' theater scripts. And I still remember this young man. At the end of our reading clinic, we have a little performance. They perform for moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas who show up. And this young man had written a poem, a version of Diddle Diddle Dumpling. And it goes something like this. Diddle Diddle Dumpling, my son Fred slept all day on his bed. Woke up at midnight, screamed, there's a monster under my bed. Diddle Diddle Dumpling, my son Fred. A little short ditty, but he wrote it and he was so proud of it. And I remember him coming up to me afterwards. We had a little reception, cookies and punch, and he tugs at my shoulder, at my sleeve here, and says, Mr. Brzezinski, can we keep doing Camp Read a Lot? It's so much fun. 6 weeks ago, this kid was running away. And now he's interested in reading. He's having fun with it. That's the art. That's the art as well as the science. He improved his reading remarkably, but more than that, as we said, he's more of an engaged reader and writer now by taking that position.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here again as a teacher and say I've been doing this for years in the classes I'm pushing into, and oh my gosh, it totally works. And it's music to my ears to hear you gentlemen say that creating readers who want to read is an important goal. And sometimes there are those that say, no, it's not. No, you can't measure that, blasey, blasey, blasey. Well, thank you very much. I've got 3 really learned researchers here that are saying that, yes, it is a goal. That all said, we are, I think now's a good time for final thoughts. So, take your own turns and whatever. But if anybody has any final thoughts here, and man, are there some takeaways to the nth degree. And I promise readers, there will be links to all this information. And I know there are going to be a lot of excited teachers and administrators and teachers of reading courses about this book. So this is really gold. But final thoughts.
We were going to talk about the response to the book, since it's only been out since the 1st of April, so only a few months. But we've already gotten some great responses. I had a chance to actually visit an undergrad class in another university that's using the book. And I talked to the students kind of informally, what do you think of it? And they were saying, we love the book because it gives us agency. It gives us that ability to not follow the script as we've been talking about, but being our own creative person. And that was so inspiring for me, because here we have undergraduates that already are thinking all I'm allowed to do is follow the script. No, you can be an artist.
Very good. Sam, Tim, Chase, and I, we're all researchers also. And I think sometimes the research, lots of times it can be pretty dry. But again, we go back to the teacher who really has this incredible responsibility and very complex task to try to take the research and make it engaging for kids. And that's, it's only the teacher that can do that. And that's why we just go back to this idea of putting the teacher at the center. How do they, the teacher really through their creativity have to bring this research together and combine it with their talents to get kids engaged in reading.
Yes, my recent mantra has kind of been when people say to me, well, not everything you teach has to be fun. I tell them, well, if it can be, shouldn't you make it?
Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Are
Bravo.
we purposely making it boring? Like,
Yeah,
sorry, you can't
We
teach
have a
summer
quota on
without
fun.
boring them to death.
yeah. Only so much fun in a day we can handle
Yeah,
here.
exactly. Sorry, the fun meter is full. We can't have any more.
Yeah,
And,
I'm waiting for you to put on your bozo nose so I can reach out and.
One other thing I'll just throw in, it kind of relates to what we all been talking about here, but that idea that, what we put in the book were examples of how we thought and have tried to put science in artful ways, but we don't mean it as a prescription. What we mean is these are examples that, teachers themselves can be inspired by to create their own artists in the classroom. That sense of agency and creativity is so important to our book, and one we don't want to let go of. And that's why we wrote the book, I guess.
right.
And we are so teachers and administrators and everyone so glad you did. My mantra is to empower that the single best course to literacy is that empowered, informed teacher working within the district curriculum. That's where it's at, gentlemen. At least that's my little personal opinion and mantra. So that all said, folks, if you don't have your copy of Artfully Teaching the Science of Reading, click on the link in the blog and please get it. It's amazing. Teachers, plenty, a lot of times research books are, interesting, but please, I got to go to sleep soon. But this is not one of those. This is one of those that gets you, wow, I've got some, when I do presentations in places, I always try to say, I'm going to try to give you something you can use on Monday morning. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, there's something you can use on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. There's plenty of stuff in this book. So how's that for a sales pitch, gentlemen?
I like it.
Okay.
Also, what
Where do you
mom
want us to
says this
send your
book is
check?
awesome.
Okay.
My mom loves this book.
So, okay. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay. Well, gentlemen, this has been just more than a pleasure. There's one last Bomberito tradition here, and that is in the Zoom wave goodbye. So in just a moment, we're all going to just wave into the camera and say goodbye, and that's going to finish it up. Okay. So, gentlemen, the Zoom wave goodbye. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Folks, if you don't buy this book, I don't understand. Okay. Bye-bye.